Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question that might sound simple, but it's the key to unlocking your future. Do you know who you are? Not your name, not your job title, not the role you play in your family or society. I'm talking about who you truly are at your core, beyond the surface, beyond the labels, beyond the noise. You see, from the moment we're born, we're handed identities by others. Who are shy, who you are smart, who you are not athletic. You'll never be good at math. And without even realizing it, we accept these ideas and wear them like clothes we never chose. But what if I told you that none of that is truly you? Oh, is limitless potential. You are a spiritual being living in a physical body, gifted with an intellectual mind. That mind has the power to imagine, to reason, to choose, and to change. Yet most people live their entire lives never tapping into that power. Why? Because they don't know who they are. They confuse their current results with their identity. They look at their bank account and say, I'm broke. They look at a failed relationship and say, I'm unlovable. But none of those things define you. The truth is, your self-image, the picture you hold of yourself, controls your actions, your habits, and your results. If you see yourself as average, you'll act average. You'll act average. If you see yourself as powerful, resourceful, and worthy, you'll start to behave that way, and life will respond accordingly. This is not just motivation. This is psychology. This is education. This is transformation. So what can you do today? Start by asking yourself, who do I want to be? I want to be. Not based on your past, not based on your surroundings, but based on the person you feel called to become. Then start aligning. Think like that person. Speak like that person. Act like that person. Because the real you is not someone you find. It's someone you decide to become. Decide to become. Remember this, you were not born to fit into the world, you were born to transform it by becoming the fullest expression of yourself. So don't just ask, who am I? Ask, who am I willing to become? And when you answer that truthfully, that's the moment your life begins to change. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of personal development, the very beginning of every journey toward a better version of ourselves. Without it, we are like ships lost at sea, drifting wherever the waves of life take us. With it, we become captains of our own fate, consciously steering toward a chosen destination. But what exactly is self-awareness? It's more than simply knowing your name, your likes, or your dislikes. True self-awareness means recognizing the beliefs that shape your actions, the thoughts that drive your behavior, and the emotional patterns that color your perception of the world. It's about being able to pause, reflect, and observe yourself without judgment. Most people go through life on autopilot. They repeat the same habits day in and day out, react to situations the same way, and wonder why nothing changes. They chase goals that others have set for them, live by values inherited from parents or culture, and never stop to ask, is this really me? Is this what I want? Is this who I am? Without self-awareness, we live unconsciously, responding to life rather than creating it. We might succeed in areas like career or relationships, but still feel a deep sense of disconnection or dissatisfaction because we're not truly in touch with who we are. Once a person becomes self-aware, a shift occurs. They begin to notice the inner dialogue that runs in the background, a subtle voice that says, you're not good enough, or you always mess things up. They become aware of the fears that hold them back, the insecurities they hide from the world, and the dreams they've silenced over time. And in becoming aware, they gain the power to change. You cannot change what you do not first acknowledge. That's why self-awareness is not just a nice concept. It's essential for real growth. Imagine a person who has always believed they're bad at public speaking. Maybe they were laughed at once in school, or maybe no one ever encouraged them to try. That belief becomes part of their identity. So they avoid speaking opportunities, say no to leadership roles, and settle for less than they're capable of. But what if, through self-awareness, they began to question that belief? What if they realized that fear is not fact, that it was just a story, and stories can be rewritten? In that moment, growth becomes possible. Education teaches us math, science, language, but self-awareness teaches us about ourselves. It's a form of inner education, and it's arguably the most important kind. Because no matter what you learn or achieve, if you don't understand yourself, you'll never be truly fulfilled. You'll always feel like something's missing, because the external world can never fill an internal void. Self-awareness also allows us to take responsibility. When we understand our triggers, our habits, and our emotional responses, we stop blaming others for our circumstances. We stop saying they made me angry or life is unfair. And we start asking, well, why did I react that way? What belief is behind that emotion? What can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? That shift from blame to responsibility is where real empowerment begins. In relationships, self-awareness helps us communicate better, set boundaries, and connect more authentically. In business or creativity, it helps us play to our strengths and recognize our blind spots. In every area of life, it acts like a mirror, showing us not only who we are, but who we have the potential to become. And here's the most powerful part. Self-awareness is not something you're born with or without. It can be developed. Through reflection, journaling, meditation, feedback, and honest self-inquiry, we can become more conscious every day. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, being curious, asking questions, choosing to look within instead of always looking outward for answers. The more aware you become, the more freedom you gain. Freedom from old patterns, freedom from limiting beliefs, freedom to create a life that reflects your true self, not someone else's expectations. So if you want to grow, truly grow, start by turning inward. Get to know your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns. Observe yourself, not to criticize, but to understand. Because when you begin to understand who you are, you unlock the greatest power a human being can have, the power to change yourself from within. And that is where your greatest growth will come from, not from outside achievement, but from inside awareness. Many people spend their lives believing that their current circumstances define who they are. They look at their job, their financial status, their health, or even their past mistakes, and assume these things are a permanent part of their identity. But that's a misunderstanding of human potential. Your circumstances are what you are currently experiencing. They are not who you are. Circumstances are temporary. They can be changed, improved, or completely transformed. But who you truly are, the essence of your being, is far greater than anything happening around you. This misunderstanding begins early in life. A student who fails a test begins to think, I'm not smart. A person who grows up in poverty may believe I'm poor, not just in terms of finances, but in their identity. A person who is criticized repeatedly may internalize the idea, I'm not good enough. But all of these are external observations that we've turned inward and mistakenly made a part of ourselves. The truth is, no matter where you are right now, no matter how difficult, unfair, or painful your situation may be, you are not your situation. You are the awareness that is experiencing the situation, and that awareness has the power to choose differently, to think differently, and to act differently. It is easy to become discouraged when you're surrounded by limitations. Maybe you're stuck in a job you don't like, living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe you're in an environment that doesn't support your dreams or understand your potential. Maybe you've made decisions in the past that led to regret, and now you feel trapped. But even in those moments, you must remember this. Your present circumstances are the result of past thinking and past choices. They are not your future. They are not your destiny. They are simply feedback. Circumstances don't define you. They reveal what needs to change. If you're struggling financially, it doesn't mean you're broken. It may mean you haven't yet learned how to manage or grow your resources. If you're alone, it doesn't mean you're unlovable. It may mean you're in a phase of personal growth that requires solitude. If you failed, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you've learned something that most people are afraid to learn. When you begin to separate yourself from your circumstances, something powerful happens. You reclaim your ability to choose. Choice is what separates humans from the rest of creation. You don't have to react to life. You can respond. You can look at your situation, acknowledge it fully, and still say, this is not where I stop. This is where I rise. That mindset is the beginning of transformation. History is filled with people who changed the course of their lives by refusing to let their circumstances define them. People born into poverty who became great leaders. Individuals with disabilities who broke world records. People with no formal education who built empires. What they all had in common was the decision to see themselves as greater than their current environment. It's important to understand that circumstances are shaped by a combination of thoughts, beliefs, actions, and time. You have control over the first three. Your thoughts influence your emotions. Your emotions drive your behavior, and your consistent behavior creates new results over time. If you focus only on what's happening now, you'll remain stuck. But if you focus on who you are becoming, your current situation begins to lose its power over you. This doesn't mean ignoring your problems or pretending they don't exist. It means facing them with a new level of consciousness. Instead of saying, this is who I am, you begin to say, this is what I'm experiencing, and I can change it. You begin to look at your challenges as temporary and your potential as permanent. And that changes everything. The people who transform their lives are not always the ones with the best starting points. They are the ones who understand that where they begin is not where they have to end. They learn to believe in possibilities even when their reality offers no evidence. They act from vision, not circumstance. They hold an image in their mind of who they want to be, and they make decisions based on that future self, not their present limitations. So if you're in a place that feels dark, heavy, or hopeless, don't give up. Don't define yourself by what you see. Look deeper. Remind yourself that you are not your bank balance, not your past, not your mistakes, not your surroundings. You are the thinker of your thoughts, the creator of your path, and the author of your story. And that story can change, starting the moment you stop seeing your circumstances as your identity. Every human being is born with untapped potential, an inner reservoir of possibility that is so vast, most people never come close to discovering its limits. When we talk about infinite potential, we are not exaggerating. We are pointing to the truth that your mind, your imagination, and your capacity for growth are not fixed. You are not a finished product. You are a living, evolving being capable of extraordinary things when you begin to understand the power that lies within you. From a young age, we are conditioned to think in limitations. We are told what we can and cannot do, what is realistic and what is just not for people like us. We grow up in systems that reward conformity and discourage imagination. Eventually, most people start to live within invisible walls, created by beliefs they never chose. But here's the truth. Those beliefs are not real boundaries. They are illusions. The human mind is designed to grow, to stretch, to reach for more. And that desire within you, that pull towards something greater, is proof that your potential is still alive, waiting to be activated. You are capable of far more than your current results suggest. Your current life situation, your job, your income, your relationships are not a reflection of your full potential. They are a reflection of the thoughts you've habitually thought and the actions you've repeatedly taken up until now. But those can change. And when your thoughts and actions change, your results change. What unlocks that change is the awareness that you are not limited by your past or your present. You are limited only by what you believe is possible. Science has shown us that the brain is not static. It is neuroplastic. That means it can form new connections, build new habits, and learn new skills at any age. You can literally rewire your mind. That alone is proof of infinite potential. If you can think differently, you can live differently. If you can learn something new, you can become someone new. But to do that, you must first believe it's possible. Belief is the gateway to potential. What you believe about yourself determines how much of your potential you access. If you believe you are average, you will live an average life, no matter how much talent or intelligence you possess. If you believe you are capable of greatness, you will find ways to rise above obstacles because your belief will fuel your persistence. And persistence is what transforms potential into power. Think about every major breakthrough in human history, every invention, every innovation, every impossible achievement. These were not created by people with special powers. They were created by individuals who believed in something greater than their current reality. They had a vision. They used the power of imagination, which is one of the greatest mental faculties we possess. With imagination, we can create new ideas, see ourselves achieving goals before they happen, and design a life we've never experienced before. That is not fantasy. It is the first step of creation. The truth is, most people are not living even a fraction of what they're capable of, not because they aren't good enough, but because they've never been taught how powerful they really are. They've accepted smallness as safety. They've confused comfort with happiness. But deep down, there is always a whisper, a voice that says, you were meant for more, and that voice is right. You were. Your potential doesn't come from your background, your education, or your environment. It comes from your ability to think, to decide, to act, and to persist. Every time you set a new goal, learn a new skill, take a new risk, or face a new fear, you expand your potential. You stretch the edges of what you thought was possible, and in doing so, you become more of who you truly are. The question is not whether you have potential. The question is whether you are willing to tap into it. Are you willing to let go of old stories and limiting beliefs? Are you willing to dream bigger and believe deeper? Are you willing to become uncomfortable, to grow, and to challenge yourself in ways you never have before? Because that's what it takes to activate the infinite power inside you. The moment you begin to see yourself not as someone limited by circumstances, but as someone designed to grow, you will begin to rise. The power has always been there, waiting for you to notice it, trust it, and act on it. You are not here to play small. You are here to express the highest version of yourself. And the journey begins the moment you decide to believe in your own limitless potential. Every person lives in two worlds, the outer world of results and the inner world of self-perception. And while most people spend their lives trying to change the outer world, chasing better jobs, better relationships, more money, they often overlook the one thing that controls it all, their self-image. The way you see yourself, consciously or unconsciously, determines the way you show up in the world. It determines what you believe is possible, what you pursue, how you behave, and what you ultimately receive. Your self-image acts as a thermostat for your life. If it's set low, no matter how much success or love you attract, you'll find a way to sabotage or reject it, because deep down, you won't believe you deserve it. Self-image isn't something we're born with. It's built over time through experiences, feedback, and the meanings we attach to what happens to us. A child who's told repeatedly that they're not good enough begins to internalize that belief. A person who fails once and hears criticism may start to see themselves as incapable. And without realizing it, these impressions become identities. The quiet thought of I'm not smart enough or I'm not worthy becomes a lens through which all future actions are filtered. And unless that self-image is changed, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. What makes the self-image so powerful is that it operates silently in the background. It's not what you say out loud, but what you deeply believe about yourself when no one's watching. You can try to act confident, set goals, and take action, but if your inner identity contradicts those efforts, your subconscious will find ways to pull you back in line with how you see yourself. That's why so many people stay stuck in cycles. They make progress, then self-sabotage. They get into a good relationship, then unconsciously create conflict. They start a business, then suddenly feel overwhelmed and quit. The issue is rarely a lack of skill or opportunity. It's usually an outdated or limited self-image. But the good news is this. Just as the self-image was built, it can also be rebuilt. You are not locked into your past view of yourself. You can choose to redefine who you are, what you're capable of, and what you deserve. It starts with awareness. You must become conscious of the story you've been telling yourself. What identity have you accepted? What roles have you been playing? And more importantly, who would you be without those labels? Once you're aware of your current self-image, you can begin to replace it. This is where the power of visualization, affirmation, and identity-based thinking comes into play. Start by imagining the version of you who already has the results you want. How does that person think? How do they speak? How do they speak? What do they believe about themselves? When you consistently hold that image in your mind, your brain begins to accept it as real. And when belief takes root, behavior follows. Changing your self-image requires consistency. You can't just think a new thought once and expect transformation. You must affirm the new identity daily. Speak it, write it, act it out. Surround yourself with people and environments that reinforce the person you want to become. Most importantly, take small actions that align with your desired identity. Each time you act like the future version of yourself, your brain gets new evidence that says, this is who I am now. Remember, reality always catches up with identity. When you shift the way you see yourself, your habits change, your standards rise. You begin to attract new opportunities, new relationships, and new outcomes, not because the world changed, but because you did. Your outer life begins to mirror your inner beliefs. That's the law of identity in action. So many people wait for external success to feel worthy. But in truth, you must first see yourself as worthy to create success. Confidence is not the result of achievement. It's the foundation of it. You don't become something after you achieve it. You achieve it because you first believed you were that person. Your self-image is the root of everything. If you change the root, the fruits, the results will change automatically. So take the time to examine who you believe you are. Rewrite the script. Create a new mental model of yourself. Because the moment you begin to truly see yourself differently, the world has no choice but to respond in kind. One of the most liberating truths you will ever come to understand is that your life is shaped more by your choices than by your circumstances. While many people look outward and blame their situation, their past, or other people for their unhappiness or lack of progress, those who grow and rise above their limitations realize a powerful truth. You may not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you always have the power to choose your response, and that response is what determines your direction. The moment you accept that you are responsible for your own life, everything changes. Responsibility doesn't mean blame. It doesn't mean that everything that went wrong was your fault. What it means is that from this moment forward, your life is in your hands. You get to choose your attitude, your focus, your thoughts, and your actions. And those choices repeated over time will build a completely different future. That's not just inspiration. It's a psychological and behavioral truth. People who take ownership of their lives develop resilience. They stop being victims of circumstance and start being creators of change. Choice is a superpower. Every day you make hundreds of small choices that either align with who you want to become or who you've been conditioned to be. What time you wake up, how you speak to yourself, how you treat others, whether you act with courage or hide in comfort, these are all choices. And the quality of your life depends on the quality of these choices. The most successful, fulfilled people are not necessarily those who had the best circumstances. Often, they're the ones who made the best use of our choices, no matter what life gave them. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize that waiting for something outside of them to change is a dead end. No one is coming to fix your life for you. No one else can decide your values, your goals, or your habits. And in that realization, something powerful is born. The understanding that you are not powerless, you are not stuck, you are not a product of fate. You are a person with the ability to choose every single day how you will show up. Even in the most difficult situations, choice remains. You can choose how you interpret pain. You can choose to learn from failure instead of being crushed by it. You can choose to forgive instead of holding on to bitterness. You can choose to rise again after being knocked down. And those choices may seem small in the moment, but they build a life. They shape your character. They define your identity. With great power comes great responsibility. And personal responsibility is the bridge between who you are now and who you could become. It means saying, I may not have chosen my past, but I choose my future. It means refusing to let excuses become a lifestyle. It means taking full ownership of your thoughts, even when it's easier to complain or blame. Responsibility is the mindset of growth. It's the willingness to say, I will find a way, instead of waiting for the way to appear. People often avoid responsibility because it feels heavy. But in truth, it's the opposite. Responsibility is freedom. When you no longer depend on others for your happiness, you're free to build it yourself. When you stop waiting for permission, you're free to take action. When you stop pointing fingers, you're free to move forward. Responsibility puts you in the driver's seat of your life. It empowers you to write your own story instead of being a side character in someone else's script. It all comes back to one question. What will you choose? Will you choose fear or faith? Will you choose growth or comfort? Will you choose to repeat the patterns of your past or to create a future aligned with your true potential? Every choice is a vote for the person you want to become. And with enough consistent votes, you become that person, not by chance, but by choice. Your life is not a result of what happens to you, but of what you choose to do about it. So choose wisely, choose boldly, choose consciously. Because when you fully embrace the power of choice and take responsibility for your life, there are no limits to what you can create. Nothing in life can truly change until you first become aware. Awareness is the first step toward any kind of transformation, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. Without awareness, we are asleep in our habits. unaware of the beliefs that shape our actions, and blind to the patterns that hold us back. It's like driving a car in the dark without headlights. You may be moving, but you have no direction and no idea what's in your way. The moment you turn on the lights, that moment of clarity, everything begins to shift. You can't change what you don't see. But once you see it, you can never unsee it, and that gives you the power to choose differently. Many people go through life reacting automatically. They repeat the same thoughts, make the same choices, and experience the same results, day after day, year after year. They may wonder why nothing changes, but they never stop to examine why they think the way they do, why they respond with fear or anger, or why they feel stuck in a life that doesn't reflect who they truly are. That's because most of their actions are being driven by the subconscious mind, which operates like a program. And the only way to upgrade a program is to become aware of what it's running in the first place. Awareness is not about judging yourself. It's not about labeling your thoughts or emotions as good or bad. It's about observing with curiosity, not criticism. It means asking yourself powerful questions like, what am I thinking right now? Why am I feeling this way? Where did this belief come from? Is it really true, or have I just accepted it without question? These questions open the door to self-understanding, and with understanding comes power. Once you become aware of a limiting belief, for example, you now have the opportunity to replace it. If you've always believed you're not good enough, awareness allows you to trace that belief back to its origin. Maybe something someone said to you as a child, or a failure you misinterpreted. Once you realize that belief is not a fact, but a mental story, you can begin to choose a new belief that serves you better. But without awareness, you would continue to live out that story as if it were your truth. The same goes for emotional reactions. When you're aware, you can notice when you're triggered instead of being consumed by the emotion. You can pause, breathe, and choose a response instead of reacting impulsively. This level of emotional awareness leads to growth in relationships, leadership, and overall peace of mind. You begin to master yourself rather than being ruled by automatic patterns. Awareness also shines a light on your daily habits. You start noticing what you're doing that aligns or doesn't align with your goals. You become conscious of how you spend your time, what you focus on, and what you feed your mind. You start to catch yourself in the moments where you would usually quit, procrastinate, or settle. And in those moments of awareness, you gain the ability to pivot, to choose a new path. That's where transformation begins. Not in one big event, but in thousands of small conscious choices made in moments of awareness. People often chase external change without realizing that inner awareness is the true key. You can change your environment, your job, even your relationships. But if you don't become aware of your internal state, you'll bring the same patterns with you. Real transformation is inside out, not outside in. The more self-aware you become, the more intentional you become. And the more intentional you become, the more aligned your life becomes with your true values and vision. Awareness also connects you to a deeper part of yourself, the part that observes your thoughts rather than being lost in them. This is where clarity lives. This is where wisdom speaks. And when you live from this space of conscious awareness, life becomes less about survival and more about purpose. Just stop reacting and start creating, You stop blaming and start taking responsibility. You stop rushing through life and begin living it fully, with your eyes open and your heart engaged. So if you want to change your life, don't start by trying to control everything around you. Start by looking within. Begin by noticing your patterns, questioning your beliefs, and observing your thoughts. Every breakthrough you desire begins with awareness. Because the more aware you become, the more empowered you are to change. And when you awaken to who you truly are and how powerful your choices are, your transformation becomes inevitable.